and welcome to the next instalment of the Tinks book reviews booktube, I guess it is. Who knows? So I did originally pre-record this, but then when I look back at it, it was a bit so I thought, you know what, I'll just record it again. So these are my top 10 favourite books up until this day. So these are my top 10 from, say, when I started my blog in 2010 up until now. I have got 9 books in physical copy, and then I've got 1 book on ebook. But without further ado, let's go. So the first one that I've got is The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury. This is the first ever book that I read by Ray Bradbury, and I absolutely loved it. If you've never read this, it is about a gentleman that is covered like head to toe in tattoos, and his tattoos like move like at night, and he can like feel them all moving, and each tattoo is like a point and where he's got to in his life, and they all tell stories, and basically each chapter is all different, and it's all about the bloke. It goes through the past and how he got them and everything like that. It was the first ever book that I read by Ray Bradbury, and it was what started me off with like sci-fi, I'd say, like sci-fi dystopian novels. Since then I have got a few more of Ray Bradbury's books. I have read The Halloween Tree, which is such a great read. If you've never read it, I highly recommend it. That is the only time I'm going to say highly recommend. Because on the old video that I did, I said it at every single book. So all of these books, I highly recommend. So yeah, The Illustrated Man by Ray Bradbury is a really good read, and it's become one of my favourites, and he has actually become one of my favourite authors of all time. So definitely do give that a go. To the Moon and Back by Jill Mansell. Now, I read this book, I think, when I was about 15, 16. I remember because it was the first ever book that I read by Jill Mansell. I took it to France and read it. Basically, what happened is when I was younger, me and Mum, me dad and everyone, and then me 2 cousins, we went away together, and we went like travelling. So we went camping from France to Italy to Switzerland, and then reversed it back on the way home, and I read this book on the way round said places, and I absolutely loved it. It's about a young couple where the woman tragically loses her husband, and she's got to find a way of trying to deal with it and go through the grieving process and cope with it whilst trying to move on. And there is like more of a romance and stuff as you get through the book and everything, but it is such a beautiful book, and it is what made me fall in love with Jill Mansell. Since then, I have got, if you've seen on Instagram, I have got like an entire shelf, I'm looking at it now, dedicated to Jill Mansell, and I've read quite a few of her books, but this one will always remain as my favourite one that she has ever written. Glass Houses by Richelle Caine. Caine, I apologise. It's my Yorkshire accent. I read this book around about the same time as To the Moon and Back, or the same age roughly, might be a couple of years younger. It was the first, probably apart from Harry Potter, it was the first ever YA books that I got into. Since then I have got the entire collection. I've not read the entire collection fully, I think I've got 3 more to do. But it's about a young girl that gets like highly bullied at school in this small town, and then she like runs off and she ends up at this house, and it's like inhabited by these 3 other people, and they take her in and look after her, and then it comes to realise that the town, it's not always what it's seemed. There's different forces and stuff like that, and different people, and she's got to try and manoeuvre her way through school, through the new friendships and everything of the housemates that she's now currently living with, whilst trying to actually figure out what's happening within Morganville and stuff. The series goes up to 15 books, I think, but this is the first ever one. I remember my mum taking me to Waterstones in Sheffield Town Centre, I actually had a day off school to go and meet the author, and she gladly signed my books, previous and the new ones as well that had just come out at the time, and it was such a nice moment, and I'll always remember it. So yes, it's one that stays dear and close to my heart. The Forever House by Veronica Henry. I think I read this last year, or it might have been the year before, but it is such a beautiful book. It really is. I'd never heard of Veronica Henry before. I remember going to W.H. Smith's and I had like a voucher or something like that, and I saw it and read the blurb on back and thought, oh, I'll have that. And you know, I usually go and read and stuff, but as recently I've been going on like Instagram and stuff like that, and BookTube and everything have been recommending. So this, I did actually get this by myself. It's about, it follows the life of two women, Sally and Belinda. Belinda is like now the present. They're both in the present, but Sally has owned this house here since she was young. She's grown up in it, and then she's like ended up with it with a husband and everything. And her husband is now he's got an illness and he still lives there. Belinda is a real estate agent, and she likes to go around, sell people beautiful houses and do them up and then sell them on. But she's had some trauma in her past life. And these two women and the two families come together, and it flips back through the past of Sally and Alexander, her husband, from when they were younger all the way till they got the house and they've had the kids. And then it flips back through Sally's as well, not Sally, Belinda. And then you find out what happens more to Belinda's past towards the end of the book. But it is such a beautiful book. And if you've not read anything by Veronica Henry before, I would read this one first, because it's so beautiful, and it's made me fall in love with the author completely. Well, with the writing. Practically Perfect by Katie Fforde. I read this quite a few years ago, I think, probably about 3-4 years ago. It's about this woman that wants to, she's called Anna, and she buys this house and she wants to do renovating and everything, and her family aren't too keen on her doing it, and they don't believe that she can do it. So she goes on to prove them wrong, that, you know, I can do up a house and I can do this, and you know, there's she's not got any steps at the moment, and it's got ladders going up to the second floor, but she does it, and she has so much determination, and it's such a lovely read. This bloke comes in called Rob, and he's all, you can't do that to a house because it's a listed building, and he tries to tell her what she can and what she can't do, and she doesn't like that. So they have to like work out an arrangement, an agreement that she can do so much on the house, but he's got to be there and stuff like that. And obviously, like, it does turn into a bit of a romance, but also on the same par, it's like, I enjoyed it because at the time I remember I was going through quite a hard time with my cakes and stuff. If you don't know, I do cakes, I decorate them, enter competitions. And I was going through quite a hard time and thinking, well, I can't do this and there's no point and I'm not going to get anywhere with it. And after reading it, I did feel quite more inspired to do my cakes and stuff like that, and to do what I wanted to do, because I think that's what it did in a way. It helped me want to do more of the things that I enjoyed, because it showed that she had so much determination, and I could have determination, but you know, it's getting that to that stage. So it really helped me, and it really did like make an impact. So, oh, these are in no particular order, by the way. Shadow Kiss by Richelle Mead. This is the third in the Vampire Academy series. I waited so long for this book. So I read the first two, which was Vampire Academy and Frostbite. And then I would have liked the entire series. So Mr. B says, well, I'll get you the entire series, but you can't read it until like Christmas Day. So I had to wait, I think it was something like 4 to 5 months, and it was absolute dire. It was so hard. But yes, so this is the third book in the series. At the time when I read it, I was having a bit of a YA slump, so I did want to get back into my YA, but I needed something new. And I mean, I know Glass Houses is also a vampire, but it's a kind of a different story. So I was having a bit of a slump and I wanted to get into it, and I weren't really into my reading that much at the time. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, I got this book on a whim. Well, I got the first book on a whim, and then I just started to fly by through all of the books. And I've even like stopped at this book because I didn't want to carry on reading the rest of the series, because one, I didn't want to know what happened. Two, I do want to know what happens, but also I didn't want to because I didn't want the series to end. So I still need to pick up the next book. But this follows on from the previous two books. And it follows the lives of Rose and Lissa, which is her best friend who's a vampire, and Rose isn't, and she's got to protect her and stuff like this. And they go through all this training to protect the vampires, and she like falls in love with like someone called Dimitri and stuff. It's too much, but it's a really good book. I ended up crying at the end of this book because it was just something, I knew something bad was going to happen, and it kind of did, but it didn't, and I was just, and someone warned me on Instagram, and I was just like, oh no, something bad's going to happen, and then it did, and I was like, oh no. But it's a really, really good book. It's a really good series as well, and I can't believe that I have waited so long to read it, but I'm so glad that I picked it up. Everything Under by Daisy Johnson. You have seen me rave about this one on Instagram and on my blog and on stories, and I picked this one up on a whim from Waterstones after reading the blurb, and honest to God, I have fallen in love with her writing and her stories. It's easily one of the best books that I have read so far this year. I think I read it a couple months back, might be a few months back now, but it's about a woman and her relationship with her mother from when she was young all the way up until as she grows up into a woman herself. And it follows her life and it goes back and forth, and what I found really clever was there's like 3 different sections in the book. So there's like, I think there's 3. It's something like the hut, the boat, and something else. Oh, there's 4. And whilst I was reading it, I found it really clever because you could easily read those sections, like as the titles are for the chapters, you could easily read those sections just as they are. So you could read all of the hut or you could read all of the boat and it'd still flow and make sense. It's just that there's different chapters in between that bring it all together, but you could read them on their own separately and they'd make sense. The ending of the book it completely blew my mind. I did not expect what was going to happen, and really, honestly, I only want to read more books by her because it was a wonderful read. It was beautiful, and it shows the relationship between a mother and daughter when it's not gone that great and it could have gone better and stuff, and how everything changes. It's mysterious, it's got bits and bobs in the book that you think, oh well, that's going to happen. Completely doesn't. It takes you completely to a different new level when you're reading, and it is such a fantastic read. And I honestly can't wait to read more by Daisy Johnson. Here's The Girl Before by J.P. Delaney. I read this book when I went away with my auntie and mum last year for about a few days, and I absolutely loved it. It follows the lives of 2 women, both at different times. I think it might probably like a couple of years or 4 years difference, and it follows the lives of these 2 women, and you know, they've both got things going on in their life, and they've both had past tragic events, and they go to this house, and this house has got so many different rules. It's weird. It's like, you can't have kids, you can't have magazines, DVDs, photos on wall, you can't have books to read. I know. Everything's got to be pristine and clean and tidy, and it's run by this bloke, or owned by this bloke, who's an architect. And you've got to go by these set of rules. And what happens is, it flips back between the 2 women, and it shows you different points on where they've been. Both women form a relationship with the bloke, and then as it gets towards the end, one woman's trying to find out what happened to the original woman, and it's a really fast-paced book. It's like a psychological thriller. It was one of the first psychological thrillers that I ever read, and I absolutely loved it. I have then since got it was on my bookshelf, but I've put it in my to-read pile. So his next book is Believe Me, and I've also been given The Ark to read, which is The Perfect Wife as well, which comes out in August, and I can't wait to read it. So this is, oh, it's also got red pages. It's a really good book. It's easily become one of my favourite books of all time, and I will always rave about it. And I can't wait to start on Believe Me. Cersei by Madeline Miller. Now, I'm trying to get it so you can see, but without, that's probably the best I can do. So I've literally only just finished reading this. I think I finished it a couple of days ago, and the review's now up on the blog. But I absolutely loved it. And if you know me, you know that I love anything to do with Greek mythology. And this is very high and rich in Greek mythology, but it's like Greek mythology where it actually tells you something. Like, I've got the Percy Jackson, and don't get me wrong, that is Greek mythology and it is like to a T and stuff, but this shows you how the gods actually were. Like, so they weren't as nice in Percy Jackson as they are in this. So this is more like of a true kind of book, if that makes sense. It follows the life of Circe, which is a goddess that's not like her family, like her dad, which is her father even, which is Helios, which is god of the sun, I think, yep. And she's not like them. She's not like a brother and a sister or anything, or a mother and stuff, and she's constantly trodden on throughout her life, from when she was young all the way up until her womanhood. She is constantly trodden on, and I feel so sorry for her. Like, anything she does is never good enough for anyone. She has lovers and she has partners and stuff, and every time she finds someone that she truly loves, something drastically happens to them, or they're just awful with her. And I do feel really sorry for her, but at the same time, she's such a strong character, and she's such a strong heroine. And it's a really good read. It's rich in mythology, and it's quite deep in mythology as well. It brings you to it, and you do get to feel that you do love her and everything, and you root for her and everything, thinking that, oh, well, she's going to do it and she's going to get there. And it is a really good read, and if you've not read it, I would highly recommend. That is the first time that I've said it out of all of these books. I think it did win the Women's Fiction Prize. I definitely know it won an award. And she has got another book out, which is The Song of Achilles, I think. So I'm definitely going to get that and give it a go. But yes, I really loved it. For anyone that's a Greek mythology fan, I'd really suggest reading it. So the next one, and the last one, is The Red House by Mark Haddon, and that follows the life of two families that are all connected, but they don't really see much of each other. So, like, you know that you've probably got your mum's family side, and then you've got your dad's side and stuff, and you might not see either side of each, or one more than the other, or you might do. That's good. But and basically the two families come together, they go away for a week, and they like rent a house or a cottage, and there's so much tension, and each family member's got like a problem that they need to solve whilst they're there, or they all need to get on with each other, and it's a nice book because it shows in a way like how an actual family is when they've not seen each other for a long time, and then they come together. It's like it's got things that you wouldn't think would be there, and it's a really good book, and I highly enjoyed it. It was the first book that I ever read by Mark Haddon, and I read it quite a few years ago now, I think. Read it on my Kobo, and I have recommended it to everyone since, and since then I have read a few more of his books, and I think it's just his writing style. His writing style is quite quirky and different, and I like that. So that is, so far from 2010 to 2018, my top 10 favourite books. So what are we in, June now? So the June wrap up will be out towards the end of, obviously, June, probably the week before or towards the end, I don't know, but it'll be coming out. I'm currently finishing off A Court of Thorn and Roses with the lovely Make Me Shakespeare, but that's not going to be done. I mean, I might get it finished in June, but we're not going to be talking about it on probably till July, August time. And I've also got the Believe Me by J.P. Delaney. I was going to say The Girl Before Then. So that is all my books, my top 10 favourite books. I might do another one in so many years' time, see if it's changed, but that is everything for now. So I hope you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment down below. Let me see if you've Tell me if you've read any of these books, what you thought, any books you think I should get checked out and read. Also, there's always a subscribe button. There. I don't know where it's going to be. Click subscribe. So, bye!